On November 25, 1960, Rafael Trujillo had 3 women and their driver brutally murdered in an ambush as they drove along an empty road towards their home. In doing this, Trujillo assumed that the complications these women caused him were finished. He did not expect the repercussions his actions would have. He thus strengthened the movement these women started by outraging the public. He thus strengthened the legacy of the Mirabal Sisters. The Mirabal Sisters did not die in vain. In both life and death, the sisters inspired impactful change in both feminism and politics. The Mirabal Sisters have greatly affected feminism internationally. According to Alan West Duran, the Mirabal Sisters have become a symbol of women's struggle against the oppression of patriarchal culture. Minerva knew that one of Trujillo's weaknesses was his lust for young women, so she purposely refused his sexual advances because she knew that prostituting her body would not achieve change the way that politicizing it would. This was a blow to Trujillo's pride that only a woman could cause, and though Trujillo responded by arresting their father and denying Minerva a license to practice law, the women refused to dishonor themselves. Minerva Mirabal was also fiercely insistent that women were equally as capable as men. Early in Julia Alvarez's novel, In the Time of the Butterflies, Minerva states, "It's about time we women had a voice in running our country." Minerva faced opposition from nearly everyone, including Patria. Patria insisted to Minerva that since politics is a dirty business, women should not get involved. Pedrito argued that a woman's responsibility was to her family and her home. Dede believed that women should follow their husbands. Minerva was not discouraged, though, and managed to prove to both her family and the world the power a determined woman possesses. In her postscript, Julia Alvarez notes that though Minerva and her sisters seemed young, powerless, and vulnerable, they toppled a dictator and sparked a movement to protect women from unnecessary violence. In 1999, November 25th was designated as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women by the United Nations in honor of the sisters' sacrifice. Through this, the sisters are properly recognized around the world, and their legacy points people towards instances where women face extremely violent backlash for voicing their beliefs. It is important to note, however, that the Mirabal sisters were heroes rather than victims. Belkis Lopez notes that narrative regarding women affected by gender-based violence does not bring to mind images of brave women, such as the Mirabal sisters. It is more important to focus on the strength and bravery the sisters displayed leading up to their death, rather than the violence they suffered. This is because their legacy is more involved with their strength than their fate. According to Larry Roeder, when textbook writers initially tried to insert the sisters into the curriculum, the family objected because their assassination was presented as a result of Minerva's refusal to Trujillo's sexual advances, rather than as a consequence of their collective activism. This activism is another one of the sisters' legacies. The sisters' sacrifice led to much-needed political change in the Dominican Republic.
Trujillo dice que Minerva es la ideóloga de todo ese movimiento. Ella que él la marcó con ese odio.
In the novel, it is clear that Trujillo wants Minerva killed, but Minerva comforts herself in the assumption that Trujillo was not going to murder a defenseless woman and dig his own grave. However, he did just that. According to Mommyverse, the murder meant the beginning of the end of Trujillo's regime, as the Dominicans wouldn't stand for this cruel act or the continued tyranny of the bloody regime. 6 months after the sisters were killed, Trujillo was assassinated by his own men. Soon after that, many more changes occurred. Out of respect for the sisters' sacrifice, the new politicians valued Dede's opinion on the changes they were planning. In the Time of the Butterflies, Dede explains how the new president told her of his plans for reform, and notes that every time that he made one of those promises, he'd look at me as if he needed me to approve what he was doing. Or really, not me, but my sisters. There were many changes in the Dominican Republic due to the political change the sisters started. There was a poet president, there were free elections, and radicals no longer feared for their lives. Although the sisters themselves could no longer actively affect politics after their death, their children worked to continue their legacy. Jaime David Fernandez Mirabal has served as the vice president of the Dominican Republic, with Nelson Gonzalez Mirabal working as his chief aide. Their cousin, Manu Tapares Mirabal, has served as the vice chancellor of the Dominican Republic, and has been a representative in the National Congress since 2002, where she is president of the Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Committee. She's also a current presidential nominee for the 2016 Dominican Republic general election. Minou is an excellent example of what the Mirabal sisters died for. She's a well-respected, ambitious politician who proudly serves a free country. What had been unthinkable nearly 50 years ago is now a reality for many Dominicans, all thanks to the sisters' sacrifice. The sisters' legacy lives on as they are honored in art, education, and politics. The sisters are now recognized as national martyrs in Dominican textbooks. Also, Trujillo's 137-foot obelisk that he built in his honor used to be a symbol of dictatorship and patriarchal society. It has since been painted over with a mural of the four Mirabal sisters. Manu Mirabal has noted that the mural is a victory that is not only political but one of gender, as it displays the sisters' triumph over Trujillo regardless of their gender. Although the death of Las Mariposas was a tragedy, it was a necessary catalyst for change in politics and feminism around the world. Just as the president said to Dede, "When you die for your country, you do not die in vain."